The wind swept hard across the parched plains of Montana as the sun began to sink behind the ridges. A cloud of dust rose behind the stallion, galloping fast down the dirt road, and upon it rode Cole Hardin, the richest rancher for 100 miles. His jaw was set, his eyes cold beneath the brim of his hat, and the letter in his pocket reminded him exactly why he was there. The late John Talbot owed him over $200, a debt long overdue. It wasn't much for a man like Cole, but it was about principle, and in these lands, principles were all a man had to stand on. Yet as the Hardin Ranch's iron gates faded behind him, Cole didn't know that the debt he came to collect would be paid not in money, but in mercy. By the time he reached the Talbot homestead, the sky had turned orange and gold, casting a lonely light over the small wooden cabin that leaned slightly with age. A horse stood tied to a fence post, ribs showing through thin hide. The garden was dry, the well half empty, and the smell of wood smoke lingered faintly in the cooling air. Cole dismounted, dusted off his gloves, and knocked on the door. It creaked open slowly, and there she stood. Martha Talbot. Her face was pale from exhaustion, but her eyes, though tired, carried a strength that startled him. Her dress was simple, her hands cracked from work, and on her hip she held a little girl, maybe 2 years old. Behind her 4 more children peeked out from the dim light, all with the same frightened innocence that made Cole's chest tighten for reasons he couldn't explain. "Mr. Hardin," she said softly, her voice trembling slightly. "I suppose you've come for the money." He took off his hat. "Yes, ma'am. I sent word last month. Your husband's debt still stands. I figured I'd give you a chance to settle it before the bank takes the land." Her lips pressed together. "There is no money, sir. John, he passed last winter. The fever took him quick. I've been trying to make ends meet, but there's only so much a woman can do, with 5 mouths to feed." Cole looked past her into the cabin. A pot of thin stew bubbled weakly on the stove, and a blanket hung over a broken window. Everything in him told him to turn around, to walk away before pity made him a fool. But the sight of those children, barefoot, hungry, staring at him like he was both a stranger and a savior, made him pause longer than he should have. "I'm sorry for your loss," he said, lowering his tone. "But I can't just forget a debt. Business don't run on sympathy." She nodded, her chin trembling as she stood taller. "Then take the land, Mr. Hardin, take it all. Just don't take the roof from over my children tonight." Her words struck like a lash. Something in Cole's heart twisted. He'd faced outlaws, droughts, and cattle thieves, but nothing disarmed him like this frail woman standing her ground for her children. He sighed deeply. "Ma'am, I ain't taking your roof. Not tonight. I'll give you a month." Her eyes widened slightly. "A month?" 30 days. You make what you can. I'll come back then." She nodded in silence, and Cole tipped his hat before walking back to his horse. But as he rode away, her voice echoed in his mind, the quiet strength, the broken pride, the sound of a woman trying not to cry in front of her children. He'd seen wealth and weakness both, but this was something different. The days passed, but the image of that small cabin wouldn't leave him. At night, when the wind howled through his mansion's open hallways, he thought of the children shivering under one blanket. When he ate steak and potatoes, he thought of their thin stew. When he closed his eyes, he saw Martha's weary face and the defiance that still burned behind it. A week later, he found himself riding that same trail again, under no business pretense this time. He brought sacks of flour, beans, sugar, and coffee, claiming they were ranch supplies owed from her late husband's cattle trade, a lie she probably saw through instantly. But she said nothing, just looked at him with that quiet gratitude that made his chest ache even more. Day by day, Cole returned, sometimes with tools to fix the roof, sometimes with seeds for the barren garden, sometimes just to check in. The children began to smile when they saw him coming. The youngest, Mary, called him Mr. Horse, and the oldest, Annie, insisted on helping him water the small patch of green that now began to grow behind the house. Martha never asked for help, but she never refused it either. Slowly, she began to laugh again, soft, hesitant, but real. Cole realized something he'd never believed possible, that love wasn't always born in youth or luxury. Sometimes it grew in the cracks of hardship, between the moments of shared silence, between a mother's gratitude and a man's unexpected kindness. When the 30th day came, Cole stood outside the cabin again, the debt paper in his hand. Martha met him at the door, nervous, her eyes searching his face. "I know why you're here," she said quietly. "I still can't pay you, Mr. Harden, not in dollars." Cole looked down at the paper, then up at the 5 children gathered behind her. "Mrs. Talbot," he said, tearing the paper clean in half, "you've already paid more than any debt I've ever known." Her eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I ain't here to collect no land. I'm here to offer you one, on my ranch. You and the kids. You'll have a home, food, and a life again. I could use help running the place, and maybe someone to keep me from going lonely." Tears filled her eyes as the children smiled shyly. "Mr. Harden, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll come," he said softly. "Say you'll let me help." She nodded slowly, clutching her youngest child to her chest. "All right, Mr. Harden, we'll come." The sun set behind them as he helped her load their few belongings onto his wagon. As the wheels rolled toward his ranch, Cole looked back once more at the small cabin that had changed everything, the place where he came to collect a debt and found something far greater. A family he never knew he needed.